Welcome to the May 16th meeting of the Kiwanis Club of Kingsport. It's a great day to be a Kiwanian.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is always my special honor to introduce today's speaker, ETSU's President, Dr. Brian Noland. Having received his bachelor's degree cum laude in political science from West Virginia University, a master's degree in public policy studies from West Virginia University, where his thesis was titled "The Impact of Changes to the Presidential Nominating System." He earned a PhD in political science at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. I expected that one. The fruits of judicial decision, which is considered by historians, not only in Tennessee, but around the globe, as the foremost study of desegregation in Tennessee higher education. Before joining ETSU, Dr. Noland spent 5 years as Chancellor of the West Virginia Higher Education Policy Commission. He then worked 8 years at the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, serving as its Associate Executive Director. And among his responsibilities was implementing the Tennessee Education Lottery Scholarship Program. He was also a faculty member at Vanderbilt University's prestigious Peabody College of Education. In January of 2012, Dr. Noland became the 9th president of East Tennessee State University. And under his leadership, ETSU has undertaken a series of groundbreaking initiatives to advance the university's long-standing mission, which is to improve the quality of life for the people in our region and beyond. During his tenure, ETSU has achieved a great deal. Its highest graduation retention and employee satisfaction rates in its entire history. And it's not surprising that he secured a record-breaking level of research funding. Sustaining ETSU's focus on regional service, President Noland has partnered with civic and corporate entities to position this university as a national leader in interprofessional healthcare research and training, as well as in the field of rural health. And under his leadership, ETSU has launched several state and privately funded health research and care centers, including, as you may recall, ETSU and Ballad Health's Strong Brain Institute, a first of its kind institute that is dedicated to promoting the awareness and study of adverse childhood experiences. In 2023, working closely with members of the Tennessee General Assembly, President Noland secured recurring funding for the Gatton College of Pharmacy, which had previously been funded entirely, ladies and gentlemen, through tuition and private donations. President Noland has guided ongoing innovations within ETSU's academic profile and curriculum. And that includes the launching of the Go Beyond the Classroom initiative, which expands the university's focus on community-engaged learning. And it aims to provide all undergraduate students with real-world, hands-on experiences, such as internships, community service, research-intensive projects, and study abroad opportunities. And not long after he arrived at ETSU, he helped relaunch the university's football and marching band programs. All heads are shaking, President Noland, that had been inactive since 2003. The football team quickly established itself as a leader in the Southern Conference, and the marching band boomed, literally and figuratively. The band grew to more than 300 members strong in just a few short years and was selected for the prestigious honor of performing last year in the 2024 Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade? Yes. President Noland has served on the board of the American Council on Education, the premier higher education organization that mobilizes the entire higher education community, comprising 2-year, 4-year, public and private institutions. In fact, it's the only higher education organization that represents all types of U.S. accredited degree granting colleges and universities. But he's also served on the boards of the American Association of State Colleges and Universities, the NC2A Division I Board of Directors, Ballot Health, the Bank of Tennessee, and the Tennessee Valley Authority. I often like to quote the late management expert Peter Drucker, who's known worldwide as the father of modern management. He defined management as doing things right, but he also defined leadership as doing the right things. Without a doubt, President Brian Noland does both, and he is a leader whose actions consistently demonstrate that he's doing the right things. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming him.
Well, thank you, and that in some respects is humbling to hear, because I just had the opportunity to work with great people at a university that has really done some wonderful things over the course of the past decade, and thank you for that introduction. I asked, please keep it short, and she said, well, I got some things I'm going to say, and thank you. I want to frame my comments today within a couple of lenses. I want to reflect a little bit on the past year. I want to talk some about the past weekend. I want to reference some of the things that are happening at a national level, just to compare and contrast what you read and hear about on the news versus what's happening at your university, and then finally talk some about what's on the horizon. So it's within those frames of topics that I'll try to be brief and leave time for questions. So as we look back at the year that just concluded, it was a year in which we as an institution had 2,138 freshmen, 3 short of the record that we had set the year prior. And that basis of 2,100 freshmen is the basis upon which our budgets and planning are structured moving forward. To frame that for you, never in the history of the university have we had back-to-back-to-back freshman classes larger than 2,100 students, and we're now positioned to do that for the 4th year in a row. So demand for the institution from students both here and globally is strong. Our retention rates have improved to where they were pre-COVID. So pre-COVID, our retention rates were approaching mid-80s, and then COVID happened. We're now rebounding to put those retention rates back within the objectives that the board set for us, which is start fall as freshmen, return fall next year as sophomores at more than 80%. Our graduation goal that the board has set is 60% of the students who start at the institution graduate on time, and we're moving close to hitting that goal. One of the goals that the board set that we did surpass this past year is a goal related to the number of graduates who graduate with debt. You know, there's this theory in the country that go to college, get in debt, go to work at Starbucks. Well, that's not the case at East Tennessee State University. Last weekend, I shook 2,012 hands. Despite this antibacterial film that I put all over my hands, I still got sick. Spent Tuesday in bed, but that's what happens when you shake 2,000 hands. But of those 2,000 hands, 60% graduated with no debt at all. 60%. And that is a goal that our board put in place as it relates to affordability and financial aid that you're seeing come full cycle. And of the things that, as I look back at the past year, and then things I'd like to share from this past weekend, are primarily some stories that frame the mission of the university. There was reference made to Macy's, and it was absolutely wonderful to have the chance to be in New York for the Macy's Parade this past Thanksgiving. I had never been to the Macy's Parade in my life, but the opportunity to be there with my mom and to be there with families from across the region was wonderful, as more than 400 students from our campus marched down the streets of New York. And what was joyous for me on Saturday was to see marching band students who were part of that experience receiving their degrees and then going on to be business leaders, to going on into education. But the trombone section leader crossed the stage on Saturday, and it was a lot of fun to shake his hand because I had talked to him at length about the trip and he'd never been to New York. But to see these students come to an institution and realize their dreams is the best part of the job. And on Saturday, there were two students who walked across the stage that just really, for me, define who we are as a university. And I'll honor the not disclosure of names, but I would like to have a chance to tell their story because they're stories of the region. There was a young man who walked across the stage on Saturday that I first met 5 years ago when he was a junior, well, a little bit more than 5 years ago. He was a junior in high school. I get out and talk to high school students about the importance of post-secondary education. 2-year, 4-year, public, private, it doesn't matter where you go, just as long as you go. And afterwards, this young man came up to me and said, I heard your comments, Dr. Noland. I really believe I need to go to college, but no one in my family's ever been to college. My mom works here at the school. My father has this job, and I just don't know how to get from point A to point Z. So we talked for a little bit. I then saw him again a year later as he was interviewing for one of the most prestigious scholarships that we have on our campus. Now, fast forward through this student's undergraduate experience. Last year, this student was a junior. During this student's junior year, I had the chance to surprise him and tell him he was the first recipient of the Truman Scholarship at our university in more than 30 years. A couple weeks ago, I had the chance to do that again. Youngman was the second recipient, back-to-back Truman recipients at your university. Really something to be proud of. This young man moves through his senior year. He was a finalist for the Rhodes Scholarship. Second consecutive year that we've had finalists for the Rhodes from our institution. But what I'm the most proud of for this student, and he's going to graduate and he's trying to decide between going to law school at Knoxville or law school at Vanderbilt. He still hasn't made his decision. But what I'm most proud of about this individual is not the academic accomplishments. It's what he and his fellow students did in the fall as this region was working to first respond to and then recover from the impacts of Hurricane Helene. When the storm hit on Friday, at that point I was still on the TVA board. So I was in meeting after meeting after meeting, getting a sense of impacts, water flow, sustainability, how things were moving from an infrastructure perspective across the region, getting a sense of what was happening for our faculty and our students who, just as you have loved ones who were on the wrong side of the river trying to get home, they're all the things we all were dealing with. But that afternoon, this young man called me and said, Dr. Noland, are you aware of what's happening? I said, yes. And he said, well, what can we do? And I said in a little bit of a flippant manner, and now in response, and in hindsight, I said, well, look, I'm a little covered up. Bring me a plan. Just bring me a plan. I don't care what you do, just go do something. Well, unbeknownst to me, he brought a group of students leaders together. They met through the night on Friday. They then met again on Saturday. Sunday morning, he called me and said, Dr. Noland, I need this space, and here's what we're going to do. And I said, great, here it is. Go get it done. So that Monday, what they did starts to happen. And around 11 o'clock in the morning, my chief of staff knocks on my door and says, Brian, you got to get out of the office and go to the Culp and see what's happening. You're not going to believe it. So I walk into the Culp, and there are students lined up outside of the building. And there are students who waited in line for up to 6 hours on Monday and Tuesday to give blood in what was the largest blood drive in the history of our region, all organized by students on the fly. And when I walked into the room and talked to the staff at Marsh, they said, Dr. Noland, I can't believe this. And the administrators were literally crying because of the power of our students to stand in line for 6 hours over a 2-day time period and give blood. But then it went on and on. We closed school for the week so that we could get out in the community and volunteer. And the work that this young man led with students was just beyond comprehension. So when he graduated on Saturday, I said, thanks for carrying forward the mission of the university and take it with you wherever you go, if you go to Knoxville or if you go to Nashville. Because the mission isn't my mission, it's Sidney Gilbreth's mission. He started it in 1911 to improve the quality of life for the people of the region. And that's what our students do year after year after year. And those aren't the stories that get told. The stories that get told are kids who come from rich families, who go to elite institutions, who've got the money to live in a tent for a couple of months. But that's not us. What's the largest student group on the campus of East Tennessee State University? The Well, faith-based organization that just this past year opened a brand new facility on West Walnut Street, thanks to the contributions of many in this room. And on Wednesday nights, there's more than 700 students in worship in that space, right across the street from campus. It used to be on campus, and I'm a bad negotiator, but part of this was by design. They had a building, it's one of the few buildings we didn't own on campus, so bought it from James for a whole lot more money than he needed it, than it would have gone for on the market, but he was then able to take that money and apply it towards the last payment on that building to bring his dream that started literally on his kitchen table as an undergraduate student to have a ministry on campus, which then turned into a building on campus, which then turned into this beautiful facility on West Walnut Street right across from the campus. So it's really wonderful to be at a place that is still rooted in place. And at graduation on Saturday, one of the things that I really enjoyed is to shake the hands of students who are part of a program that we have called Access ETSU. We modeled this program after something they have at the University of Clemson, where President Jim Clements has a daughter who just graduated this past weekend in Clemson's version of the program. And if you've not seen the video of President Clements' daughter hugging him at commencement, where it turned into this tackle and she threw him to the ground, and it's quite funny. But that program to serve individuals with need and to give them life skills to go out in the community and make a difference. We graduated more than 20 students from that program on Saturday. And there's a young man in that program who has a sports talk show who walked across the stage, and I was really, really proud of him because he was able to do some things that few people thought he would be able to do. And that's a program that makes a difference, and it's a missional difference. There was another hand that I shook on Saturday that is a little bit of a transition to me to national issues, a young man named Kamari Peterson. Kamari played basketball for us. Kamari was the SoCon Player of the Year. But Kamari's story is an interesting story about the power of higher education to change the arc of history for a family. Kamari went to Indiana State University as a freshman, went there in the height of COVID, had a miserable experience, things didn't go well, and he left school and went back home to Gary. He was going to work in the steel mills. And his high school basketball coach said, Kamari, you don't need to just stay here in Gary. Give basketball another chance. Go to a community college and give it another chance. So he goes to John A. Logan Community College, has a very good year, and then transfers to ETSU. Played for us for 3 years. Kamari graduated on Saturday with his bachelor's degree, 3.75 GPA, and Kamari will, in the fall, go to the University of Washington to play basketball. Now, here's the difference between Kamari and the student who's going to go on to Vanderbilt. Because of the world that we live in, and I'm on the NCAA board, you should say, well, Brian, you should fix it, but this is beyond my control. The world of NIL has changed the landscape for big-time college athletics. Q's going to go to University of Washington, and he's going to make $1.3 million in NIL money to play basketball and get his master's degree. It's hard to believe, but now let's go back to the genesis of it. 6 years ago, this was a kid who dropped out of school and was going to go work in a steel mill. Now he came to the university, got a bachelor's degree, going to go to Washington, work on his master's degree, and get some NIL money along the way. We did everything we could to keep him, but I mean, that's more money than our whole NIL budget combined. But I was happy for that young man. And as I look across graduation from our College of Medicine, which is a Tier 1 university in America for rural and family practice, which means Quillen is a top 16 med school in the nation for rural and family practice. To students in pharmacy, in med school, 4 of the 72 graduates are going on to the armed services. In pharmacy, 3 of the 42 graduates are going on to the armed services. And then of the 2,000 plus graduates on Saturday, 12 are going in as second lieutenants. There's only one university in America that sends more physicians into the armed services than we do, and that's the Medical College in Bethesda. So another point of just trying to convey to you that an institution right down the road is still rooted in the things that have made this country what it is so great at for so long. So some of the things that are on national issues, I referenced to some of it with athletics and Mr. Peterson and NIL. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens 1 to 5 years from now as it relates to the landscape of college athletics, and the extent to which athletics, as we've come to know it, is sustainable. Our golf team last year finished 12th in the nation. After we finished 12th in the nation, LSU stole our coach, and the coach stole 5 of our players. LSU was ranked number 1 in the country this year in golf. But where was our golf team? We just finished up. We were regionals in Reno. So we still won the league, and we came back and retooled. But the ability of institutions like App State, like ETSU, like Marshall, to continue to compete against the schools like a Tennessee and a Georgia and a Michigan and Ohio State, it's going to be really, really interesting as we're in this environment of revenue share and NIL, where you've got a payroll for a basketball team at the level that Florida was. They've got a $10 million payroll going into next year. Just how sustainable is that? That's something that I think we've got to watch and pay attention to as the landscapes of athletics changes. There's a lot of discussion that's occurring around the country around issues of anti-Semitism, the role and activity of institutions, and how all of this plays. I don't know what will happen at the federal level. If anyone knows what's going to happen at the federal level at anything, let me know. You ought to go buy a lottery ticket because every day it changes. But that uncertainty is difficult because what do large organizations lead? What do churches need? What do schools need? Predictability. The ability to know what tomorrow is going to look like and the day after tomorrow is going to look like, because you've got to plan. But the ability to plan is, I think, a little challenged as we're moving through the periods that we're moving through. And, history cycles and we'll cycle through this. But there are a lot of discussions around taxes on endowment, elements related to colleges being at risk on loan forgiveness for individuals who do not repay their loans. And what I would just like to kind of stress to you, because there are leaders in this room whose voices matter, is that not all institutions are Harvard. There's only one Harvard. And then there's us. Blue collar school, 40% of our students are first generation, 40% of our students are Pell eligible. We've got a $125 million endowment. Our research is different. Bulk of our research is clinical, but not all institutions are the same. So don't paint higher education with a broad brush, because most institutions are not Harvard or Columbia or Dartmouth. I'd love to have that endowment, but we don't. We're very different type of institution, but lots of things get painted with a broad brush. And then I think the element for me that is of greater importance now than it's ever been is the need for talent in our nation's economy. I was at Happy Valley High School last week talking to their juniors and seniors, and I gave the same speech that I always do. 2-year, 4-year, public, private, it doesn't matter where you go, just go. And I told the story of my nephew, who right now is living in Waco, Texas, and my nephew's 26 years old. He went to Greenville High School, and I think I've talked to you about my nephew before. But my nephew hated school, and whenever we would get together for family gatherings, he knew I would want to talk to him about college, and he'd always run from me. And finally he said, "Uncle Brian, I hate school. I hate studying. I don't want to go to school anymore. I just want to get a job. I want to work with my hands. Because I want to build things. I want to put things together. and I want to be a part of something where at the end of the day I can see my work. So we spent a lot of time talking about what that could be. Ultimately, he went to the TCAT in Morristown, became a certified welder, got a couple technical certificates on top of that. He's now a travel welder. He makes $100,000 a year. He's got an awesome job. Why does he have that job? Because he went to college. RCAM is college. Northeast State is college. TCAT Elizabethton is college. College isn't just us. And what was interesting, the last time he was home, I was talking to him, and he said, all the supervisors are engineers. And the people who have the really, really good jobs are engineers. How could I get from where I am? Could I go back to school? Is it too late? My shoulders are starting to hurt. I may want to go back and be an engineer. So the reason I'm telling that story is because all of you who are in an employment space know the struggle that you have for talent. We've got teacher shortages. We have nursing shortages. We've got shortages of talent across the board. So in an environment when lots of folks are questioning, should kids really go to school? And the bulk of the folks who question that are people who went to Harvard anyway. We need more people going to school because we need welders and we need folks with CAD/CAM abilities and auto diesel repair. All of that requires some form of training beyond high school. So as I get out, and one of the things we've done at the university is create a P20 network that brings all the superintendents together in conjunction with the 2-year, 4-year public and private schools across the region. Dr. Jeff Morehouse, who you all know very well, leads that, is to create an environment in which more students are looking at something beyond high school, which includes the military, as an opportunity for the bridge from where they are to where they want to be. So as we look at what's on the horizon for the university, and then I want to open it up for questions, I'm excited about the year ahead. And we're going to, in a blink, it's here. But in the year ahead, I anticipate that we'll break a record for freshman class. Our residence halls are already at full capacity. We've got a wait list. We anticipate there'll probably be 80 students in hotels as we start the year because the demand to be on campus is strong. We're going to break ground on the renovations to Brown Hall thanks to the support of the General Assembly and folks in this room. We're going to break ground on an integrated health sciences building. We're going to make some progress moves towards starting a full engineering program at the university as well as bioengineering. We've launched mechatronics, and I've talked to you about that before, the need to build out engineering. You'll see us make some ground on that. You'll see us look to grow the incoming class of the College of Medicine. It sits at 78 now. Within 2 years, that incoming class will grow to 100, with the ultimate goal of growing that incoming class to right around 150. And I want to close on Quillen and then open it up for questions because one of the things that I think we all forget is just not only the quality of Quillen, but how competitive it is to get into Quillen. This coming July, 78 students will begin their journey at the College of Medicine at Quillen. Those 78 students were selected from over 4,200 applicants. And those 78 students will then slot through into positions where they'll move out, they'll do the residencies, and many of them will end up planting their practices here. So here's my close, and then I'll open it up. During the close of the year, there's a lot of celebratory work. You shake a lot of hands, you tell congratulations to a lot of people, but occasionally you get to see something where life comes full circle. We've got a program on campus called the Roan Scholars Program, started by Mr. Louis Gump more than 20 years ago. And at the senior dinner that night, where I had a chance to sit next to a woman who was accepted to both Quillen and Harvard, she chose us. She chose us over Harvard Med. But the speaker that night was a gentleman named Dr. Michael Stallard. I met Dr. Stallard my very first year. Dr. Stallard was a Roan Scholar. He was a sophomore. He was on the intramural basketball team. We played ball a fair amount. There was one year we did a study abroad, and he was there. Dr. Stallard went on and graduated from Quillen. He then went and did his residency in New Orleans, where he worked for a very high-end sports medicine group, the group that did the recovery work for both the Saints as well as their NBA team. Well, Dr. Stallard was back speaking to the Rhone Scholars. And I said, Dr. Stallard, it's wonderful to see you. How are things going? He goes, well, it's great to be back home, because where is he now? He's an orthopedic surgeon here in Kingsport. So full circle. Young man who was a Rhodes Scholar, goes away and does his residency, and now he's back. And I said, great, because I'm still dumb enough to try to play ball, and I hope I don't see you with the torn Achilles like Jason Tatum has. But that's the full circle of your university. It educates your teachers, it educates your business leaders, and it probably educated your doctor and the nurses who care for you in the hospital. So I thank you again for the opportunity to be here, and I'd be happy to take any questions in the time that we have remaining.
You recently had a new hire for general manager in the sport.
David Blackburn.
Can you kind of explain his role?
I can't. I'll mention Mr. Blackburn's role, and then I'm going to transition off because we've got a special person to recognize, and I'll be happy to stay behind and take questions. But within the realm of name, image, and likeness, because that has become kind of the standard operating procedure to recruit basketball and football players, we realize that puts the coach in a very difficult position, because the coach is no longer recruiting players. You're having to negotiate with attorneys around contracts, and you're managing a roster the same way a professional team is managing a roster. So David Blackburn, who was at the University of Tennessee when Coach Fulmer was there, was then AD at Chattanooga, and has been helping us with football for a while, will be the first general manager for basketball and football at the university. David's responsibility is going to be to negotiate all of those contracts with incoming players, to work through the entanglements of NIL to help raise money for NIL. But he is in that position of working through all the labor agreements so that the coach can go back to being a coach and not having to negotiate the contracts of 12 basketball players for the men, probably 6 for women, probably 40 football players. It's just an entirely different world. It's not a pleasant world, but David's very talented at what he does. And one of the reasons we have Cade McNamara, former starting quarterback from the University of Michigan, will start for us in the fall, is because of David Blackburn.
Well, if you can't tell, I was grinning a great deal. Had a wonderful day on May 4th at Dobbins-Bennett High School to have the honor of giving the Higher Education Advancement 2 award to somebody who's going out of state to college, but we will let him tell you that. But our Kiwanis Award for the high achievement, high grade point average individual at Dobbins-Bennett. I learned after I was there that in addition to getting our major award, he was awarded the French Award, the Math Award, the Tennis Award, and the Science Award. And I knew he scored a perfect 100% on his ACT test, and he's a National Merit Commended status. But it was my pleasure to give him our award, as I say, for the outstanding achievement and academic excellence that he received as the highest GPA awardee at Dobbins-Bennett. And it's my pleasure to introduce him to you today.
Okay. First, I'd like to say thank you, Dr. Davis, and thank you to everyone in this room. And it's such a great honor to be able to speak in front of everybody today. This thing on. Can everyone hear me? Okay. It is such a great honor to be able to speak in front of everybody in this room today. And I'm so honored for the award that I was given the other day. And I just want to say thank you for everything, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. Today, I just want to say a couple words on why I think, first of all, why I think this award is so important to me, and why I'm really appreciative that it's given to the highest GPA student at Dobbins-Bennett, and a little bit about Dobbins-Bennett in general. Obviously, a lot of you may have gone to Dobbins-Bennett, but coming out of it, hopefully graduating in a week or two, um, I just want to give a little bit about my experiences there and then what I plan on doing after. So, first of all, I'm just gonna take this out. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about the academics at Dobbins Bennett. So, when I take visits around for colleges on campuses like across the country, I always talk with other students and how they like their academics or their academic experience at their high schools. And given my 4 years at Dobbins Bennett, every single day that I'm here and every single day that I talk with students across the country, I am so grateful that for everything that Dobbins Bennett gives us and provides for all their students. And speaking with other kids that go to high schools here, but also like great high schools across the country, we realize that Dobbins Bennett is just different. So obviously, there's the AP classes and all of this, but the teachers there as well. It doesn't matter if it's just like a simple like a calculus class or physics. The teachers there go above and beyond, and they make the courses rigorous and challenging to prepare you for the next level. And so Dobbins Bennett has just done so much for me, and I really um, am grateful to be able to attend such a great high school. I mean, I know a lot of my friends who don't go to Dobbins Bennett and then end up going to um, col- uh, colleges where the course curriculum is very difficult. For example, they oftentimes struggle. And I remember when my brother was taking organic chemistry at Georgia Tech, I was asking him, how was the transition, from Dobbins Bennett to Georgia Tech? And he's like, well, it's actually not as bad as you'd think because getting to take classes like AP Chemistry at Dobbins Bennett, where you're already prepared for a lot of these things, the transition is just so much easier. And the academics at Dobbins Bennett are great, but that's just one portion, right? And two of the things that I love about Dobbins Bennett is what Dobbins Bennett provides for us, but also what Dobbins Bennett allows us to go do on our own. So Dobbins Bennett obviously has done a lot for me through the academics it's provided for me, but also it's allowed me to go do so much on my own. For example, Mu Alpha Theta. Mu Alpha Theta is the honors math organization. That's a national organization, which is for math students, math competitions, things of that nature. So, in my 11th grade year, I went down to the state competition for Mu Alpha Theta, and I was very grateful because I was given the ability to go down there with a teacher, and a lot of my team was actually sick, and the rest of my team was at a science Olympiad competition. So I was the only one, and I'm so grateful that even though I was the only student who was able to represent Dobbins Bennett that day, because a lot of my teammates, couldn't be there, I was still given the opportunity to go down to Oak Ridge High School and compete in all the competitions. And I decided to actually run for state president. And something funny, or something fun and funny, I guess, about how the presidency works for Mu Alpha Theta is that the president of the Mu Alpha Theta State Convention, they actually host the next year's state competition. So after competing in all the events, and I realized that I actually won the state presidency, and that would mean I'd have to host the next year's math competition at Dobbins Bennett. And at first, I was like really stressed because there are going to be hundreds and hundreds of kids coming from Memphis, Nashville, Knoxville, all these different schools across Tennessee coming to Dobbins Bennett, and I was worried like I have to make all these tests, get the answers, answer keys, solutions, make double, triple check them because I already know those kids from Memphis University School are going to be on me. So having to do so much work, I was a little bit worried, but having the guidance of my teachers and having the support of my principals who were willing to open up the new STEM building, which is just amazing, and getting to open that up and host a competition in there, it made it so much easier having the support of all the staff and administrators around me. And I knew that if there were any challenges, there would be people there to help. And it went really smoothly. There were hundreds of kids that came from schools across the state, and we had a really successful math competition. And now next year's competition will actually be held in Memphis. So that's one thing that I was able to do through Dobbins Bennett, and they empowered me to do something on my own. So it's not just what Dobbins Bennett provides for us and gives their students, but also it's what they can allow the Dobbins Bennett students to do on their own, basically. And another example of that is like internships or work experience. So after my ninth grade year, I wanted to work. I wanted to get a summer job or some experience in at Ballad Health, and I saw that on the Dobbins Bennett website they were offering positions for different um, health positions, physical therapists, and other jobs at the hospital for volunteering and for internship work. And getting help from the Dobbins Bennett career counselors and some of the really helpful teachers, I was able to get an internship and shadow at the Ballad Health Corporate Finance Department. And obviously, that's another thing that's not directly affiliated with Dobbins Bennett, but it's something that they provided me the opportunity to do. So I just want to say I'm honored to be able to attend Dobbins Bennett, and I'm honored to be able to be in front of you guys here today and receive this academic award. And I don't think that could be possible without everybody in this community who's helped me um, go along through this journey. And then one little thing after I graduate, I plan to go to UT Austin, as Dr. Davis alluded to. So UT Austin is in Austin, obviously, but I don't want to talk too much about myself, but I took a visit down there over spring break, and I love the campus. And although I still consider it the fake UT, I did really enjoy it, and I loved all their programs. So yeah, that's a little bit about what I'm going to do after I hopefully graduate next week.